Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is the August 29th recording for Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, and this is the beginning of level 2. So there's still wonderful questions in the chat, and there was a question that Pedro asked in Messenger that I also want to talk about. So back to, yeah, Dominic is, if you watched the level 1 stuff, Dominic showed us some of his models and his understanding of how the chakras map to the surface of Earth. And Dominic says, this is important, but every flat earther and scientist is going to kill me for this, truthfully, because they're both having kind of like a religious belief system, like, I believe in my truth of my reality, and then they don't like it if their bubble gets burst. So on the subject of flat earth, I don't really like to have flat earth conversations in my comments or whatever. I don't mean to demean anyone, but I do not feel that flat earth as a theory holds together. There are some very startling flaws in the theory. So a lot of the people that are attracted to that way of thinking, I understand that they are people who are seekers, that are looking for something new, that are looking to not be limited. It's the same thing like if people are talking about Saturn's cube and I don't want to be limited, I don't want to be reincarnated again, all these things. Like, it's good to look for new possible interpretations of reality, and also it's really essential to use critical thinking, because there are aspects of flat earth that don't make sense just with me, what I can see with my naked eye. And when I see the sun literally setting behind the horizon and it's shaped like a D on its side, like that, it's like it's not that we have sunrise, we do not have sun coming into view, and the day-nighttime terminus cannot simply be explained with the idea of a sun that is further away in the same room. Like, if I have a light bulb on in this room, it lights up the entire room to a greater or lesser extent, but it's not like there is like one area and then there's a hard edge shadow. That is, in order to have that, we have a spherical planet. So I'm sorry to tell you that that's what's going on. So, okay, but not to get too much into flat earth. Yeah, I'm really happy to share my ideas, and I'm happy that it inspires other people. So thank you, Dominic, for sharing your own work with me. So that was, we were just touching on flat earth a little in the break between things. Jen says we could still be on a flat plane and have this energy around us like an eyeball, don't know. So what I would say is, I think when people are exploring flat earth, they're exploring the idea of multidimensionality and portals, where you can go through a portal in one place and end up in another place without having to go through all of the intervening, physical integument that ties you together. And there are, like I said, many flaws in the model that just cannot be explained. Salu says, yeah, I can't see how the earth could ever be flat, since energetic flow just wouldn't allow for it. Everything from the jet stream and various different ocean currents do not work on a flat earth model. The seasons, these are very basic ideas. So what disturbs me, sorry to vent, what disturbs me about the flat earth theory, resurgence of that, is that it's evidence of mind control, that people are not truly thinking for themselves, that I see that their critical thinking is being bypassed. And a lot of the people that espouse the idea of flat earth, because yes, NASA does lie, yes, the government does lie, yes, there are many questions that are being hidden willfully from the public in order to keep you disempowered. That's truthful. But just like, yes, there's a lot of these things like faked NASA astronauts on wires, that they're clearly doing wire work, they're not in zero G. Like, there is some fraud that is going on, but I don't think it's a fraud about the shape of the earth. Jen says, ancient drawings make her wonder, though. So, okay, I'm like, everybody, you can be on an exploration. I encourage you to, think your own thoughts and have your own ideas. Pedro's saying the plane routes seem strange. So, I mean, everybody's allowed to think their own thoughts. I understand, Jen. Okay, so what I would like to get into in this level 2 presentation, and bring up my notes over here, is your body and experience here as a refinery of consciousness, your individual connection to the sun and what that actually means in terms of what we're supposed to be doing here on a moment-to-moment basis, and how that relates to the events on the skin of the torus, and how we can rearrange those events by doing the flying rainbow lasagna. So beginning with the idea of being a refinery of consciousness. So I'm not sure if I have overemphasized or made it clear or whatever. We're supposed to, let me bring up a picture too. Can you do my little thing? Bring up a picture. Go to share screen. Thank you for bearing with me, everyone. Okay, get rid of you from the previous presentation. We will go to you. Here's a good one. We are supposed to be this refinery, and here's another one we can talk about, a refinery of consciousness. And so that means that we've got energy that is coming from up above, higher dimensional, less dense realms, and that's coming into us. But then what we're also doing is we are taking the energy of the external stimuli that would be analogous to this red zone. The red zone, it doesn't just mean your physical body, like the cells of your body. It also means, hey, I'm hearing sounds. Like my ears are being stimulated by vibrations in the atmosphere. Hey, I'm seeing stuff. My eyes are eating photons. Hey, I'm perceiving a reality, and that reality has objects in it. It has a little dog sitting on a chair over there. It has butterflies flying around outside. These are all stimuli, and those stimuli can be considered a type of food. And we eat real food too. All of that is meant to be the raw stuff that we are then refining. This is a refinery of consciousness, that we are bringing it from the general to the specific, like focusing a lens, and then here's an arrow in the other direction. We are sending our arrow of information back to the sun, back to the source, back to the thing, the person, the consciousness that has emanated all of the stuff that we have in order to have this experience. So this is a big distinction to make, because I am talking about not having any intermediaries. And this is one of the big takeaways or points to emphasize right now. So I've spoken many times about the hacked human operating system, the implantation at the level of yellow. Think of that as like overcast clouds. You're here on Earth's surface, and there's a bunch of thick pea soup clouds, and then there's a brilliant shining star in the sky that we're not able to effectively connect with because of the intervening layer of clouds, which is like the verbalized mind. That every time in our mind, when you hear thoughts, your verbalized mind, I've said that you can imagine that as being like friction, like an imperfect engine that is emitting heat and friction and losing energy as it's functioning. And you can also now think of it as the static on the line, the impediment, things that block out your innate connection to the sun. And the sun is part of, but not synonymous with, the singularity, the source. Because the source, there's one singularity that's in every star. So our star is the nearest version, it's like the nearest franchise of the singularity. And so we're getting all of our connection from that star. But you know something, we've got wonderful atoms in our body, like calcium, etc. All these atoms that could only have formed as part of the death explosion or nebula of a supernova, nebula created by the supernova, the death explosion of a star at the end of its metabolic life. That what we're presently using as our material for our bodies and for containers for consciousness, some of what we have comes from old dead stars that have already gone out of existence, and the rest of what we have comes from alive stars that are in the sky right now, that we're literally, as I said in level 1, eating photons through our eyes. The sun is emitting photons. If they didn't come to this planet and bounce off of an object and go inside of your iris, they would have just continued on their journey, their photonic journey, endlessly going through space. So you stop that light from continually going through space. Now it's inside of you. It stimulated your retina. It went inside of your brain. Now what? You've got light inside of you. Your consciousness, your perception, your light is all coming from the sun. And this is not supposed to be a unidirectional road. So this is a big takeaway here, because I think maybe there's some exploitation or out of balance stuff in human family realms where you think all of the energy comes from the mama or from the parents, and the child does not give any energy back to the parents. But, and I'm not saying you should eat your babies. Don't eat your babies. Do not eat your babies. Please feed your babies. But in what we're learning now about fetuses and pregnancy, that it's not just the mother is giving nutrients to the fetus so that it can develop. The fetus also creates stem cells that if the mother receives an injury during pregnancy, those stem cells go to the injury and heal it. So it's not a unidirectional road where the parents, established generation, are constantly radiating out and giving energy and nutrition and nourishment to the offspring, and the offspring just say, yum, 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 I'm going to eat it. It tastes so good. Okay, I'm done. It's also the offspring having some responsibility or balance to be able to send energy back to the parent. That's what we're supposed to do as refineries of energy. We are being given these bodies with the capacity to perceive and have senses and have experiences here. All the other objects, all the other living creatures here. And what we are obliged to do, what we're supposed to do, is do a real-time broadcast, a live stream back to the sun. We're not supposed to have this cloudy layer that cuts us off from the sun, the parent that emanated us. So the point is, the sun cares about us deeply. I do understand from talking with a lot of people in this world, in this time and place, some people have, they're like depressed or dejected, and they say, has God abandoned humanity? Like, where is God? Where are the angels? Where are the benevolent, higher dimensional beings? Because I see a lot of suffering going on around here, and I'm completely agreeing with you. There is a lot of suffering here. There's a lot of exploitation, a lot of disease, a lot of imbalance. And I want to affirm to everyone, God is very real, even though there's just total distortion in Earth's established religion. So let's divorce religion from God. God is very real. Christ consciousness is very real. And when I say Christ consciousness, talking about a level of, musicianship and harmonic integration that happens at the level of stars. And all of that is very real. It's been blocked out or impeded from getting through to each one of us by the constant talking, daily waking intellect. Like, flapping my moving mouth parts here on videos is, whatever, challenging enough. But like constantly having thoughts in your mind, talking all the time, like it's exhausting. It's very, very exhausting. So yeah, there are many different approaches. Like lesson 5, we talked all about meditation and mindfulness in terms of how to focus your experience, and in focusing your experience, not having those thoughts that are frittering away your energy, being able to broadcast back to the sun, because the sun made you, just like a parent makes you. And in this world, many parents exploit their children. That's why I said, don't eat your children. Here's a non-literal example of eating your child. Like, you can drink its blood, but you can also be like, you have to become a lawyer in order to please me. Like, I'm a lawyer, you must become a lawyer too. That's like eating your children. You got to let your children be free, to be who they really are, be their best versions of self. So the sun that emanated us and the stars wants each one of us to be the best version of who we can possibly be, because we are all here as part of this cosmic artwork. And when you achieve your highest potential, and you're as healthy as an Olympic athlete and a genius on every artistic and intellectual level, you're also living your best life, and that affects everyone else. Just like I was saying kind of at the end of level 1, that we are so interconnected with the planet on the level of chakras or energy centers, with one another, with living beings that live right now, with living beings that live in the past. Like, let's say you were meant to make some kind of an invention and innovate some new thing, and you didn't because you were busy, working at your stupid cubicle job, and you didn't live your best life. Then that means that there's a thing, there's an invention. You're supposed to have invented this thing that isn't in existence, and that was supposed to help and transform and uplift other people that were coming after you, that weren't going to meet you in life, and you just worked in your cubicle and didn't do that thing. All of that is affecting one another, because they're waiting for they're like waiting for the baton. Like, I'm going to run my relay race, I just got to get that baton. And no one ever gave them the baton. So then it's like, okay, it causes the entire system to break down. So we are healthier as a planet, and not just our planet, but life everywhere, when we achieve our highest potential. So the whole idea is, when you're a real loving parent of any species, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to cultivate your offspring so that they reach their highest potential, not so that they fulfill your expectations and please you in some way, because we have a lot of very distorted cultural expectations of what is good. Like, becoming a lawyer is good, but that might not be your thing, and you're not actually serving society by doing that, but you are pleasing your parent. So yeah, no, the sun is like an impeccable parent. So I apologize if anyone has family structure that makes it hard to imagine a truly loving parent, because I understand that that's also very common here. Think of the sun as like an idealized version of a mother or a father that had a child intentionally, really, really loves it, really, really loves to nourish and feed it, and wants for you to reach your highest potential, and also wants to know what's going on in your life on a moment-to-moment basis, but not like an evil parent that wants to control you, or like a parent that really loves and cares about you. because we are getting all of the possible combinations of possibilities and probabilities in the time field from the sun. Not just the sun, but the entire stellar network. They're making the musical score that we are beginning to play with our physical embodied instruments. And let's say your musical score of your body, of your life, at a certain moment is, I'm about to run into a brick wall and die. And let's say that there's clouds between your mind and the sun doesn't know that you're about to run into a brick wall and die. But then let's say you're able to somehow supersede those clouds, maybe like flying rainbow lasagna, and you're able to say to the sun, hey, I'm about to run into a brick wall and die. The sun will be like, let me write a new song for you so that you can evade certain death and instead stay alive. Like, wouldn't that be so much better? So that's the whole point. The sun, that you have not been abandoned by God or the source, the creator, or the great musical composer. What we are is we've been in like a cellular dead zone. Like, hello? Is there anything going on? There was nothing going on for a really, really long amount of time. And that's because of the genetic degradation in humanity that made it harder to hear, because there's the constant talking in the mind with no pause button. So in the meditation class of lesson 5, we talked about imagining the creation of a red pause button. Just press pause, and then you don't have to have the mind constantly talking all the time, and to be able to cultivate different techniques that work for you. I will go on to the next topic, but I want to see what's being said over here. Hold on, let me get to this chat. Pedro says, are photons from artificial lighting, light bulbs, LEDs, fluorescent, nutritious, or are they like junk food? Excellent question. Thank you so much. They are not like junk food, but they are not as fully nutritious as actual light from the actual sun or actual stars. So here's my lovely light bulb. It's an LED light, and I use it in order to have, effective lighting in here so that you can see my face in front of the technological camera. That came from, I don't know what the source is down here in Southern California, but it's either natural gas or coal or some petrochemical or possibly solar power or possibly wind power. But all of these energy forms, they all trace back to the sun. The sun made organic biological matter millions of years ago that became coal. We burned it in the plant. Or it became natural gas. We burned it in the plant. Or literally solar collectors collected a photon that then stimulated a wire that went to my LED. So the light spectrum off of my LED light is not the same as the light spectrum coming in through my window. And you can do all sorts of wonderful physical science experiments with actual little triangular prisms and sending light rays through there. You can do it with light from the sun, and you see all of the colors of the rainbow come out of the light from the sun. But then if you use artificial lighting and you send that through a prism, then you will see only certain colors coming through there. So if you want to have, if you want to grow plants under artificial lighting, or if you want to have the best artificial lighting for your eyes, painting of artwork, because I'm very big on this to see the colors properly, and your health and your vitality, what you do with your indoor lighting is you get full spectrum bulbs that emit all of the frequencies. So if you have, let's say you have a grow room growing your tomatoes inside under your grow lights, those tomatoes are not getting all of the consciousness that comes from the sun. Even if you're growing under full spectrum lights, you're just getting some of the physical frequencies, but you're not necessarily getting again, consciousness is the only word I can find for this. There are non-physical energies that are not being emitted by the light bulb. So yeah, it's your food or whatever medicine, whatever herbal medicine you're growing will be way more powerful and potent and, let's say, intelligent or tuned in if you expose it to natural light. And it's the same thing with us as humans. It would not be the same if we lived like troglodytes underground and we only had full spectrum light bulbs and went to tanning beds to try to get enough vitamin D. We would not have that same consciousness connection to the sun. So I mean, I love where I live. It's very sunny every day, even to the point of being 100 degrees, and I'm able to get lots of sunlight all the time. So not only can I see my artwork effectively to be able to choose the right colors and paint, and also it's where I get my ideas and my creativity and my inspiration from. And if I live like a troglodyte under fluorescent lights, I'd be like, where am I supposed to get my ideas from? So yeah, a big part of my inspiration is being outside and actually having those waves of consciousness come inside of my physical body. I think a lot of the present industrialized lifestyle that puts us inside, away from natural light, is harmful and, against vitality for all of those reasons. Like, you're not getting consciousness on you beyond really the radiant, information coming from the sun. Oh, so the photons, we're supposed to be eating photons that come directly from the sun, right? But sometimes I'm eating photons that are intervening, like these are LED photons that are coming off of there. So they're not quite the same as the ones that I eat when I look at natural light. So if I look at my paintings under LED light, it has a particular cast to it, and there's not such a richness of seeing all the colors. Or if I need to take good pictures, good snapshots of my artwork, you don't do it under artificial lighting. You either open up all the windows or you take paintings outside into the backyard and prop it up so that you get all of the real sunlight you possibly can, so that all of that light is reflecting into the camera and you're getting the truest version of what those colors are. So it's a really good question. Dominic says, when I make the spiral torus, I have smaller, the center gets bigger. Is this how the chakra works? So the smallest is the most powerful. That's exactly correct. If I go to this picture that I've got set up over here, the smallest gear on this gear arrangement known as your chakras is your violet chakra. And that one has the shortest wavelength and the highest frequency. So do the annotation. It doesn't always work for me. I don't know why. So I'll just use my cursor. This little chakra that is here in the center of your head, it's your violet chakra, is moving the fastest. So if we could consider it as a gear in the physical realm, it's the smallest and it's moving the fastest, but it also has the highest energy. It does the most work. It can move the most stuff because of the power that it contains. So in this arrangement of these gears of your chakras, of these proportions, the red is the largest circle and the lowest frequency. It is actually the least powerful aspect of self. So if we bring this to a logical conclusion, if I say I do 1 unit of energy, let's say, how can I understand this? How can I use, let me drink a little bit of water and figure this out. If I exert 1 unit of energy or force at the level of violet, the smallest gear, the highest energy gear, it becomes amplified or magnified into, let's say, 100 or 700 units of force when it is manifested into the physical realm. And the best analogy that I have on that is, it's also like, oh, here's the annotation. That's what I was wanting. Good, good. If this is like a gun or an arrow, like we're going to shoot a bullet or we're going to shoot an arrow, any correction that I make very close to here, like the barrel of the gun, any correction that I make here has a huge impact on where the actual end result is of the bullet, the projectile that I'm shooting. So if I make a correction, go backwards. If I make a correction here that's like 1 centimeter lower, that gets magnified out to several feet lower on the target when everything gets magnified. So when you are working with corrections or changes at the level of the violet level, a little, like if you make 1 centimeter of change at the violet level, that can reverberate outward through the layers of existence into the physical level, where 1 centimeter might now become several miles or whatever, whatever. The distance to the sun, like it could become massively, massively magnified. So the understanding of all this means that a tiny change at this level of your chakra system or your layers of your body can have a huge impact in the physical realm. And you can do tons and tons and tons of work in the physical realm and only get a tiny amount of change in the violet level of the non-physical realm. And that's tough, because what if you're like, I'm going to run 10 marathons and I'm going to exert tons and tons and tons of energy on the physical level, and then you find out that that only gives you, 1 unit of energy on the violet level. You're like, I ran 10 marathons with my physical legs. Like, that's not very much to get. So that's the challenge. It's, if you're looking for efficiency, it is much more efficient to make changes on the non-physical level, the level of violet, the highest frequency we can do, and then have those changes radiate outward to the physical realm, then to try to transform the physical realm and hope that those changes will work their way backwards to the culmination point of the non-physical realm. So, there's different ways of cultivating ourselves. And, yoga poses are one of that. Like if you hold your arms and legs like this, and if you do this for, 10 minutes for 10,000 years, then 10 minutes a day for 10,000 years, then you will finally cause 1 centimeter of change at the violet level. So it's like saying, you're cultivating the physical. It takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, walking many thousands of miles to get a little bit of change at the violet level. So those are really, really good questions. Yeah, I'm affirming to you, you have it completely correct. The smallest is the most powerful. Pedro says, I like the way in the Lord of the Rings, I know those movies. I went to the movies with my friends to see them. Describes how God and the angels make music, and the rebel angels make their own music and begin to cause discord. Wait, let me make rebellious angel music. That is not even music. It was horrible. I agree with you. And then God creates a third melody that unites both melodies, and all this go to create the world, and it mirrors the music. That's very interesting. I feel personally like I don't want to have to integrate horrible music into the band. I feel like, if you ain't going to play your music correctly, or if you don't even have a instrument, that you should not be in the band. And that, it's cool to be a band member that might just need to learn and practice some more, but it's not cool because I think these are pathogens, these demonic or devilish beings, the occupiers of the interstices, and we'll get into how they are fatty deposits. I don't think that they're mere mistakes, like, oh, oops, pardon me, didn't mean to step on your foot, like I just made a little mistake and now I'm a demon. I don't think that it's like that. I think that it's actually a concerted effort, and I'm starting to describe it as a religious mania. And this might be hard to understand because to think of artificial intelligent beings as being religious or having a religious mania might be a stretch. New Battlestar Galactica TV show, I think, had a good example of this, where Cylons, who are kind of like synthetic humanoid robots, had their own version of the Bible or their own version of religion, where they believed in like what created them, where did their consciousness come from, who they are in the cosmogenesis, and what would be their culmination or their salvation. And I think that that type of religious mania is literally what is being played out on Earth by the technologists, that they literally believe in a type of saviorship through artificial intelligence and technology that is as religiously manic as people who believe in the Roman Jesus, the crucifixion, the necessity of dying and then being resurrected. It's death cult stuff. And so I think that both organic life and non-embodied, non-cellular life, the occupiers of the interstices, everybody's got this mania, and it's all very unhealthy and all very pathogenic. And I'm not here, like I tell you, all the time. I wear a cross. I'm not looking down on or making fun of Christians that are part of the church, but y'all just found out that there's there were 300 rapist priests in Pennsylvania, and that's just from that one little area that they investigated. There's a lot of pedophile rapist priests. The church itself is, horribly corrupt, and the teachings of the church are also highly questionable. They're mostly done either for their own benefit or like death cult in order to harvest your consciousness into the interstices. So the religious mania of the beings that occupy the interstices has affected and afflicted the religious mania of people that are embodied here, and the people that think, oh yes, dying is a good thing and dying will lead me to salvation and I'm going to die and then I'm going to Jesus heaven. They're part of the religious mania. Except the mania of the artificial intelligence beings, I think that they look at some possibility for redemption, like that they can somehow magically get their way back to source. But what I can tell you guys, and this is like real talk from the world here, they don't make enough gas in the world to get in the car for those guys to drive themselves back to the source, or to, the singularity, or the place that they got emanated from. There is not enough gas in the world. So that literally means, let's say that you're an occupier of the interstice. You're like, I'm hungry. I don't have my own connection to the stars. I don't eat my own food. I'm going to eat you, and you, and you, and you, and you. I'm going to eat all of you. What if those beings ate all of you, everyone who had ever existed, everyone who will ever exist, all stars that have ever existed and have now turned into black holes after they metabolized all their stuff, all stars that are presently in existence, all stars that ever will coalesce from a planetary nebula and be in existence. They still would not have enough gas in their car in order to be able to get back to the source. This is like math. It's just basic, simple math. And I say that they have a type of religious mania because they are not rationally recognizing the basic math. And if you are a logic-based being, as an artificial intelligence being, based on calculations and data, and like data collected over thousands of years or millions of years, you can't just ignore the math. That's why it's a mania. Like when people in this world believe in, a death and resurrection or any of those narratives or whatever, it's like, it's not scientific. It's not math-based. It's like emotion-based. They're believing in what they want to believe. And that's fine because you are a cellular being and you're alive and you're allowed to choose what you want to believe. We're talking about programs, like, created artificial beings that are programs that are not living embodied beings like you and me. And they are not conforming to basic, processes, basic thought processes of a computer. If in your computer, if you put into the calculator 1 + 1, and if it gave you equals 5, you would say, my computer is malfunctioning. This is not correct. And they have done the math. 1 + 1 = 2. You can't make it back to the source that emanated you. And they do not accept that. And that's the whole thing. They're like, I'll build an artificial Merkaba. I'll eat all the planets. I'll do this and that. It's like they're lying to themselves. They have no chance. They have no chance of making it back to the source. They can't do it. So they're stuck on the interstices. They're not alive. They don't have the gas to get back to where they came from. What's the solution? And I always give my understanding of this is the solution of entropy. They're supposed to go to a state of non-being. And this whole tiresome, arduous experience that we've been doing of fighting against evil has all been because they've been going to entropy very slowly. Like, oh my God, several millennia, like I used the example, falling backwards off of a very tall building. I'm falling backwards, and then it's like, okay, a year has gone by, they're still falling backwards. They've now set up a whole little flying encampment. They got like a little cook fire. They're cooking some sausages while they fly backwards through time. That's what the pesky occupiers of the interstices are. So, and this is also a good way for me to be able to explain this because this is part of this lesson. This is lesson 11 of level 2. The idea of food, how you eat, whether you eat consciously, whether you're broadcasting it back to the sun, and adipose tissue. And let me also be really clear on this, like I'm not being mean or judgmental or demeaning to anybody that has fat on their body. I know I'm a slender person, but this is not fat shaming. That's what I'm trying to say. But we can look at the functioning of the human body and we can say that there's an optimum level of fat that you should have on, subcutaneously and in your organs. And then some people have too much. And why do some people have too much? It is because of stored emotional experiences. It's not merely because of gobbling too many calories. Science, that's only looking at the objective materialist slice of reality, says, you have ingested, not injected. You have ingested too many cannolis and run too few marathons, and that is why you have too much fat. And that's actually not totally accurate. The truth is, a person who has too much fat on their body has ingested too many cannolis in a non-conscious way. Because what we're supposed to do is have a direct connection from our experience of being submerged in the time field to the sun, beautiful parent that emanated us. It's like I gave you your body and I gave you all these wonderful experiences, and now I'd like to know what is going on in your life. So again, this is not a horrible human parent that's like, I want to own, control, manipulate you. It's not like that. This is a loving parent that wants to prevent you from dying or smashing into brick walls or whatever. So it's like, hey, tell me what's going on in your life. So if you're eating a cannoli, you can broadcast that experience, the taste buds on your tongue, to the sun. No intermediaries, no Roman Jesus, no disembodied extraterrestrials, no occupiers of the interstices. No one else gets to eat your food except for you and the sun, because you are synonymous with the sun. You're feeding yourself. You created yourself. You are experiencing this. You're eating the wonderful food. You are sending back or doing a live stream, a broadcast of what it is like to eat a cannoli. I do not eat that anymore, but I have eaten them in the past before I had to be more strict about sugar. And there's a wonderful place in New York City that makes cannolis called Rocco's Pastry Shop. And I heartily encourage everyone to go there. I'll give you the address. It's on Bleecker and 8th Street. And if you find yourself in New York City or make a special trip there, get their cannoli. It's absolutely completely worth it. It's like a bucket list experience so that you can broadcast that to the sun. Hold on. Yeah, so you can eat a cannoli consciously, and you can broadcast the experience to the sun. And then what happens is you are not carrying around that as an emotional backlog. I'm grabbing my hard drive. Here's my hard drive. Hold on a second. I know I'm off camera. Here we go. This is my hard drive. I use this in order to store up all of my videos and artwork and music projects and everything like that. This is just like what happens when you eat food unconsciously. So let's say you're eating a cannoli, but you're also like watching TV or doing something else at the same time. Dog boss is coming up. Then what happens is the cannoli goes into storage. It goes into storage. The sun doesn't know that you ate that cannoli. The sun doesn't know what the experience was like of it until you hit the membrane of death. And when you hit the membrane of death, then all of your stored up experiences in life, your hard drive, goes back to the sun. That is the experience of what happens when your genetic sweater, come on up, baby, when your genetic sweater gets unraveled. So you've been knit together over many, many years into this particular format of a genetic sweater. You didn't quite get your trajectory right. You hit the membrane of death and you died. And then as you're on that membrane of death, imagine like a waterfall that is washing away the fibers, or like a big giant, needle is unfurling, like a big giant crochet hook is pulling everything out of alignment and pulling out all of those loops. And as the loops are pulled out, all of the information finally gets transmitted back to the sun. But it's too late because you've already died. But the sun is like, oh, you went here and you did this and you had this experience over here, and then, oh, you ate that cannoli. Now I found out about it, but it was too late because you already died. Because if you send back the experiences in real time, like I was telling you about the, I think it was Nicole, a person in this class who narrowly avoided death on the highway one day by doing a flying rainbow lasagna. That type of spontaneous time maneuver happens when people supersede the cloudy layer that is cutting them off from God or the divine or the sun in a moment of crisis. Like it could be a health crisis, because I know people have done this when they are, lying on their deathbed dying of cancer. And I know people who have done this on the road. And basically the idea is they get to such a level of duress that finally there's like a little tiny break in the clouds, and they're able to say to the sun what's going on, like, I'm about to die. And the sun can be like, wow, that's horrible. That's not a good, let's play this. That's not a good music. Let's instead change it to, somehow you magically got off your deathbed and started a new life instead. And so, yeah, some part of it, those decisions in each one of those people's lives, sometimes it was a personal decision, like a personal willpower. You can come on up, baby. And sometimes it was, something external, like, being able to not be hit by another car. Oh, come on up. There we go. Everybody, Cheeky's here. Oh, thank you, Dog Boss. Wonderful. Oh, we're so happy to see you. Yes. Cheeky, I want you to know, thank you for the criticism, that everybody loves to see you on the internet. We'll give you a little view. Here's Cheeky. She's doing great. She's fantastic and wonderful. Cheeky, everybody loves you. Thank you for making your appearance. She's a real typical boss. She likes to nap most of the time and then show up for, for a little handshake, show up for a little encouragement, and then afterwards we will go back to napping. Yeah. Looking at more of these questions here. Hold on a minute. Hold on. Pedro says, before I knew about the lasagna, the idea of God being so wise that he, she, it can outsmart rebellious angels appealed to me. Now knowing about the FRL and the famous lesson 18, everything has changed and makes more sense to me. I think this is a big, thank you for that comment, and I think that this is a big part of our maturation process as individuals and as a species, is getting a expanded and more accurate view of who and what God is, who and what this great composer is, what motivates it, what motivates, he, she, it, and the impact that it's having in our life. Because again, God is not absent, God is not dead, God is very much here, but the problem is that God keeps on getting all of our crucial information long after the fact. If you watch a recorded video, you watch my video here after I've already finished it, It's like you're just talking to a screen. You're not talking to the real me in the moment. And the sun and the stars, the stellar network, first of all, is incredibly loving, incredibly benevolent, cares about you down to a molecular or atomic level. Like, your atoms matter. That really matters. Like, some dead star emitted this calcium that's in your bones. You're doing important stuff with it. Like, you're not supposed to die. You're supposed to do important stuff with all of that calcium. So the entire stellar network cares about you profoundly, and not just you. All organisms. Shiki's calcium matters. You know, whatever the microbes in both of our tummies matter. And I keep on affirming that because I understand that humanity might feel abandoned, but you are not abandoned. You've been in a cellular dead zone. And the big takeaway is, once you can flying rainbow lasagna, you can get connectivity again. You can get a signal. You can actually rebroadcast to the sun what you're supposed to. That this is what we're all supposed to have, a wonderful two-way street where the sun is giving you ideas, energy, and guidance, and then you are having experiences in the sensory realm, and you are broadcasting back those experiences to the sun. And so now that the more people that do lasagna, it's like giving back feedback, or actually sending signals from our eyes to our brain. Imagine if you had a blockage on your optic nerve. So energy entered your eyes, but never actually made it to your brain to be processed as perception. This is what is happening on this planet since the invention of the human mind, since the invention of the degradation of the human genome, that we're supposed to be constantly in a connected state to the stellar network and have all of that energy that's coming into us reflected back in a big giant feedback loop. And that for all of what is known as recorded human history, we've been busy talking in our own mind and not effectively listening and not effectively broadcasting. And you guys know me, I'm not here to be judgmental. It's not like, naughty, naughty humans, you've been busy talking in your mind instead of listening. It's not like that at all. It's like very poor, downtrodden, sad humans that have had a horrible mind infestation that has cut you off from your own divinity and your own birthright and your own creative capacity and everything that you're supposed to be as you know, whatever, a fully activated, embodied human. Pedro, Salud says, Pedro, yeah, religion is just ridiculously romanticized based on emotions and fantasies. That's a good point. Aurora, is it their whole being that is supposed to go into entropy, or is it just the suck aspect of their energy that is supposed to go into entropy? That's another really beautiful, intelligent question. So it's kind of like saying, if we've got a pile of stuff here, is there anything valuable in the stuff, or is it all just poop? Is it all just not supposed to be in existence? So what I would really say is to the occupiers on the interstices, like the real demons, not imagine a human who has lived a distorted life and who hit the membrane of death and who is then being tortured in hell as their crochet hook is slowly, torturously slowly, pulling all of the loops out of their personality and sending back data like so slow. Like, it's not an issue now, but in the early days of the internet, it's like loading, loading, loading. Like, this is taking forever. It's just like that those beings that were once human like us and having bodies and that then, you know, got stuck on the interstices after, you know, dying a conventional death. There is some kernel of, you know, beauty in there, like some divine gold essence, and then lots and lots of tarnished stuff on top of it that needs to be taken out. But there's that beautiful kernel of consciousness. And then there are those pathogens. And the pathogens are like mind viruses. They are objects out of place. They're not, and this is big because I think everyone wants to be compassionate and nice and hug a demon and be like, oh, you've got a heart of gold, but you've just, you know, been tortured and tormented in your life. No, they don't have a heart of gold. They literally are abhorrent. They're not supposed to be in existence. And a long time ago, when they ejected themselves from the source, they did so with good intentions because they recognized, wait a minute, the source is the presence of everything. It's everything that's supposed to be in existence. And we're not supposed to be in existence. They're viruses in the nucleus of a cell. They're like, good viruses, get out of the nucleus of the cell. And they also stop being in existence. But somewhere along the line, those beings that are entropy beings, entropic, they stop being entropic. They're like, wait, I don't want to fall backwards anymore. Now I want to hover in place by being a vampire and feeding off of you. So that crucial flip-flop is why we are all suffering, and that's not cool at all. And the solution to all of this is everybody's supposed to be where they're supposed to be. If you're supposed to be a non-being, like you don't exist. You don't exist. You're supposed to not exist. You're supposed to be a good non-being and sit around not existing. And beings who are supposed to be in existence are supposed to be in existence. And when I say good people like you and me, there are many embodied humans who have the potential to, grow at a certain level, and they are diminished in their life. So the version of who they are is not their truly fulfilled, truly blossomed version of who they're supposed to be as a person. That's why their sweater should be unknit. It's like, well, we knitted your sweater together, but you didn't really do what you're supposed to do in life. You worked your cubicle job and you got diabetes and then you hit the membrane of death and you died. It's like, that's not really you. That's not the real you. But there is within that person the potential to be a divine embodied being. And that's why the circulation back to the beginning, the attempt to get closer to that timeline that is oriented like this as opposed to oriented on the side, this straight up and down timeline. So wait, I've got more questions, but then I want to go to rearranging the skin of the membrane of death. Yeah, really good question. Gala's making a good joke. I have to share this. She says to Salu in the question, in response to the question about whether there's, kernel of anything good inside of people, Salu says, maybe Dick Cheney, he's not even human anymore. I completely agree. Like, we can bring up his name, and there are many others like him, either in politics or celebrities or whatever. They are not human anymore. So they once had containers for consciousness that they got through conception. However, they then became demonic minions where they said, hey, use my container for evil. And then they cloned or synthetically replicated their bodies, and they transferred their consciousness into these synthetically replicated bodies. And it's like if you take a Xerox of a Xerox of a Xerox of a Xerox, then eventually it's just a big grainy mess. That's what we've got with the guy that is presently known as Dick Cheney. Like, you cannot look at him and say, oh, like he's got a crusty exterior, but inside there's a heart of gold. And he's really like, no, there's really not. And that sounds harsh to, a person that might be listening to me, be like, what, like Aurora's like some crazy, whatever, eugenicist, and she's going to go around. No, I'm not going to do that at all. But I want to tell you that all the stuff that I talk about, I don't want people to think that you got to hug a horrible demon or love and feel good, kind feelings and caring feelings for some people that are truly heartless, that truly have lost their divinity. They've compromised their inner divinity to the point that we can no longer say that they're part of that realm. That's an important thing to understand. This is a world where you're auditioning to get the gig, right? You're auditioning to see if you are worthy of continuing to move forward in time. And that's just very clear. Some musicians are horrible musicians. They're gonna make horrible music. That's Dick Cheney music. It's horrible. He's not supposed to be in the band. Don't even like give him a little triangle to play in the band. Like, he's not supposed to do anything in the band. Okay, let me drink a little bit more water. Pedro says, God is suffering from a lot of lag getting out information. Thank you for saying that. That's absolutely accurate. That's what's going on. We're experiencing time lag, and the time lag has been like 5,000 or 10,000 years. That's a significant amount of lag. Gala, Salu says, Gala, I had to Google Dick. I'm actually British, but now I know who that is. So yeah, so there's, I'm sure, villains in the British realm that are of an equal magnitude of just completely compromised, completely heartless. We could hardly even describe them as still being human. Gala says, atoms and matter. Matter, we matter. Yes, exactly. She says, Mr. Cheney does not have a heart or liver or kidneys. I think he is missing other stuff too. I don't remember them all. Yeah, he's definitely had several heart transplants, and I think that he is like, a synthetic replicant at this point. So what I want to talk about now is the idea of those last moments of your life. Because I say to you, like, when I hold up my little hard drive, holding up, my little recordings, these are all the songs I've ever written in my life, all my videos, all of my thoughts, all of my feelings, all of the pastries I've ever eaten, all recorded on this little blue box. And this little box would be analogous to, in my little drawing of the time field, let's go to the whiteboard. Let's clear the whiteboard away. Oh, that's not what I wanted, sorry. Here, I want to, how do I move this? I want to move my face, there we go, and clear all drawing. and put this down below. Just move this to the side. Yeah, now I have space to draw. When I make this drawing of the time field, and everyone in this class is an expert, so you know what I'm talking about, the lower quadrant of that yellow shape if you're new to these videos. They always exaggerate this. It's not drawn to scale. So where I'm drawing this membrane here that I'm highlighting in black, that's actually a really, really skinny membrane, but I'm drawing it as having a thickness so that I can show you what's going on here. Let's make this green timeline going up the middle, your eternity timeline, the path of least likelihood, the ascension timeline, or what happens when you become the truest, realest, most divine version of you. And then we'll make all these other like blue timelines. And again, the timelines, for anyone who's accessing this who doesn't know what I'm drawing here, these timelines are actually going around like spirals like this, but for the ease of creating a diagram, I just draw them as simple straight lines. And all of these simple straight lines that are on both sides, because this is a cross section that we're looking at, they all end on the membrane of death. The membrane of death flows downward like this direction, away from the source or away from the sun. And now let me draw these little red dots like lollipops on top of blue sticks. Every single one of these little dots is a hard drive. It's a collection of calculations and variables and recorded data that is the end result of a particular trajectory. So every single one of those blue lines that I drew, you can think of it as like a bunch of numbers put together. 1 + 1 equals, we'll do it going upward, 1 + 1 equals 2. And as the timelines get more complex, we have more and more and more numbers like 1 + 3 + 4 + 5 + 7 million, et cetera, leads to this. All right, so each one of those red dots is like the end result of a calculation. Our body is the calculator. You are a complex calculation machine, even though you might not know it. The calculations that you're doing are a combination of all the different variables of your life. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your feelings, that's your internal world, and also your actions, your external world, where you go, what you're experiencing. All of those are the variables that are the numbers that we're adding up here. So we're adding up a series of numbers that end with an answer to the equation. And in this whole drawing over here, all of these red dots are the wrong answer. They all end in death. All of the red dots are the end result of combinations of variables and numbers. What happens when you do this the wrong way? Not the right music, the wrong music. And there's only one little variable, one little combination of variables that will lead you through the wormhole up at the top. That's the green timeline. So all of this in order to say, we can look at the red dots that I drew. Those are your hard drives. Like here's your hard drive. Your hard drive is full of numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4. You understand what I'm talking about here. So now when we start to look at my little yellow sculpture, and we're talking about, here, I'll hold it in front of my face, and we're talking about the membranes that represent the membranes of death around this little yellow sculpture. We understand that it is made out of circulating energy and information, like this energy flow is supposed to go in this direction. If I drew the whole picture would look like this, a big giant circle. And then this one would also be a big giant circle. And that's even only half of a chakra, because then we would have another big giant circle down here and another big giant one that goes up that way. All of these big giant circles are circles of circulating numbers. That's what you've got to start to understand. So let me stop share and go to some images that I've got. I just have to search for this image really fast, I promise, guys. Because I've got everything perfectly arranged in my class lectures. I just have to squint and scroll. I know I'm making funny faces. Okay. Sorry, I don't have this one already set up for us. It's got to be around here. Well, here, I'll use this as an example. Here we go. Got it. Okay, cool. Sorry for taking the time to do that in front of you. I'm totally organized. Now go to share screen. Okay, cool. So this nice big picture that you see over here contains all the elements that I'm trying to share with you about the surface of the torus being numbers. So first up, trying to get color that I can use to kind of highlight things. What you're looking at here where I'm scribbling is in blue. This is one torus or one donut shape. And so it's only half of a whole chakra. But it is a good example of what is happening when I say that there are numbers that are mapped on the skin of the torus. This is an example of vortex-based math. So what you're looking at here, where I'm scribbling in blue, first of all, I have to say very clearly, I did not invent vortex-based math. It was actually invented or popularized or discovered by Marco Rodin. It's his name, R-O-D-I-N, and you can find wonderful videos, that's D over here, sorry, I'm kind of so bad, by Marco Rodin and one of his students, I think his name is Randy Powell. They explain it very, very well. And there are many other people who also do it too. Okay, some people will just dismiss vortex-based math. It is mere numerology. I'm not impressed with it. Blah, 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 like very pompously. I find it very fascinating and interesting. And what you basically have, I think you can see all the different integers. The 9 is up here at the 12 o'clock position. And we begin with 1 over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Those are the basic numbers that are in existence, and then there's also 0, and 0 is the this little place right down here where I'm making a big giant dot. That would be where 0 is. So we've got all of the basic building blocks of numbers represented there, and I hope you can see if I highlight this. This is just like the cross section of the torus that I show. That one is shaped more like a W and has straight lines, but I usually draw it so that it looks like, you know, 2 circles like this. You have a chakra, you know, a vortex at the top and a vortex at the bottom. So if I drew those vortices in the vortex math diagram, we would have a vortex up here and a vortex down here. So you know, they're not exactly the same portion, but it's giving you the same idea. And the idea with vortex-based math is that we do not do math with Arabic numerals like 1 plus 1, that I cannot make my pen move, equals 2. And we don't do equations that go in a linear sequence like that. That you can do embodiment equations, that all of the lines in this diagram here represent vectors of force that are either doubling or adding, multiplying, or dividing, decreasing, and getting smaller or subtracting. And that dependent upon which direction you're moving and you know, how you're bouncing around this sculpture, or bouncing around this diagram rather, you can make all sorts of different calculations by moving around the torus shape. That's the basic takeaway on what vortex-based math is. That's what's relevant for this lesson. So in order to understand how vortex math relates to the skin of the torus, you need to remember or know about that it's this crazy little game called Sudoku. I used to be so into Sudoku, but then I had to give it up. It's almost like an addiction. You have these little boxes like this that are divided up into little squares, and you have to put all of the integers 1 through 9 in the square, so you can see I have you know, the exact right number of boxes here. You cannot repeat. So you can only have 1, 8. You can only have 1, 9. You can only have 1, 2. So it's kind of like a logic problem, like, you know, a logic challenge where, you know, okay, if I've got a 2 here and a 3 here and a 4 here, then what are the other numbers that fit in the rest of these boxes? The same type of logic is being applied in the boxes. You can see that this over here is divided up into many different boxes. The skin of the torus is mapped in a grid, and each of the grids contain all the integers 1 through 9, and you cannot repeat. So there are different patterns of numbers. Big takeaway here of all these flapping moving mouth parts, the skin of the torus is mapped with patterns of numbers. And hey, I just got through explaining and describing to you guys how the time vortex at the bottom of this sculpture has membranes of death that are like the boundaries, the skin of the torus, that are the end result of the equation of your life. They're your hard drives. So now I'm making a connection here between these abstract numbers representing the events of your life. So I make it very clear every time I do class and I talk about this stuff, I'm not a transhumanist. We're not just a software program that is running through some, giant virtual reality simulation. We're much, much more than that. However, we need to understand in structuring reality that you're doing like the trial and error of what are the right combinations of thoughts, ideas, and behaviors that lead you to the path of least likelihood that you will then go up the center line and exit the wormhole and experience continued consciousness as opposed to hitting the membrane of death. There is a right answer. So you're on an anthropomorphic journey, a human level journey, because you want to know, like, whoa, what's the right answer? Is it do I go to the store and buy ice cream? Will that lead me to the path of eternity? Or is it, I go for a hike in the woods and that will lead me to the path of eternity? And there is a right answer. I can't tell you what it is for your own life. You have to explore it. And the whole idea is that there is, when you come up with the right combination, it could involve ice cream. Could involve going to the ice cream shop and getting exactly the right flavor and then transmitting that to the sun, and then you are whatever on the right path. It's not just whatever. It's not just based in how good your diet is or something like that. But all of this relates to the flying rainbow lasagna, because any place where you have a torus, donut shape, you can make it vibrate in a higher dimensional state. And then you can get a flying rainbow lasagna shape. I hope you can see that I'm superimposing a very crude flying rainbow lasagna shape on that little donut-shaped torus. And when we do that, let me get another picture going on here. Get another picture here. Stop share. I got another picture to show you. I've shown you this before. To find it, it's the picture of superposition. Superpositioning. I found that super fast. That was really good. Boom, and now, sometimes it's very hard for me to find stuff. Hold on a minute. Everything gets covered over on my screen. I'm like, where is everything? Hold on a minute. This is here, this is here, this is here. This is here. Screen share. Technology work. Here, thank you for bearing with me while I found this image for you. This is a picture of superpositioning. We have the torus in cross section, so we actually have two tori. One where I am scribbling up here, and one where I'm scribbling down here. And when we vibrate that, it's the same torus. I should make this very clear. This is the same exact torus up here as it is down here. We are superpositioning it. Half the time it's in the higher position, half the time it's in the lower position. When it is in the higher position, you see where I'm down here, where I'm highlighting in red. Hey, that's that diagram that I was just showing you before with the little blue. Let's draw it out. Here's all of those blue timelines going upward and hitting on the membrane of death. And let's even draw that green timeline. This is the optimal timeline that goes to the source and also is down here going to the source in that direction. So where I highlighted in red over here, this is that meniscus. Meniscus is the lens-like thickening of water that separates water from an area of lesser or greater density. This is the membrane of death, where I'm scribbling in red over here. That's where all of your information stored up on your cosmic hard drive goes on the moment of death, where you then are trying to broadcast it back to the sun, and the sun is like, oops, sorry you died. I'm finding out about all this a little bit too late after the fact. In this drawing, what we're beginning to understand is that we have half information. Let me clear this up a little bit. We have half information that is coming from this position of the membrane of death over here, and we have half information that's coming from the one that is down here. These are new ways to combine together numbers. It's not just that when I showed you over here. Gotta move, well, okay, sorry, I don't just move that here, move this so you can see this better. Oh, now I lost my cursor. There's the cursor, here's the thing. You can't still see properly, but all of these numbers here that I'm, my thing's not working, hold on a second. All of these numbers that I'm scribbling on over here, that's one version of reality. So that would represent one position of the superposition. certain collection or series of numbers. That your events of your life can be represented as numbers is what I'm trying to say, takeaway. And then when we go back to this one over here, the numbers that are part of this position, when the torus is in this position up here, are not in the same arrangement when they're in the bottom position. They're two different sets of numbers. So we can add together some numbers from the equation that's going on over here and some numbers from the equation that's going on over here to create an entirely new equation. That is called the flying rainbow lasagna. So I'm going to reiterate this because I know it's a lot. I'm trying to keep it clear. When we flying rainbow lasagna, the verb, we are transforming on a genetic level. What we're also doing is vibrating our time body, the body that is made up of all of these recorded experiences over time. And we are combining different positions, superpositioning, different possibilities, so that we are rewriting events of death. So just like, I'll go back to my face, just like Nicole was saying, you know, that she was almost in a car accident, but then transformed the experience and then came out without a scratch and the car was unharmed. That's the end result of the combination of two different events. So one event was, here, lower, here's my sculpture. This position down here smashed on the ground. This position up here drove safely to her destination. And the vibrating or oscillation between these two positions was a combination of some of the notes or numbers or integers from this position and some of the notes or variables or possibilities from this position. And she was able to weave those two versions of reality together to come up with option number 3. This is the whole idea of what we are doing when we begin to do the flying rainbow lasagna. We are reweaving the time field, creating new possibilities that transcend or abrogate the necessity of death. You don't have to die. You can write a new possibility. You can write a new series of events. I'm looking at the chat in order to read this. Pedro says, I saw a video of someone building a generator that looked like that toroid. It wasn't free energy, but he claimed to be generating a lot of electric energy. That is called a Rodin coil. Here, I'll go back to share screen, but let me get a picture. I got pictures for pictures. I got all sorts of pictures stored up for you guys. Here, hold on a second. I know I make silly faces when I do this. Screen to scrolly. There we go. And now I have to go back to the share screen. Hold on a minute. Share screen. Do it. Technology work. Here we go. Here's a lovely image of a Rodin coil. So it's named after Marco Rodin, who popularized the idea of vortex-based math. And if you look at this, some crucial aspects of it are the winding pattern. So you've got areas where there's copper wires that are very close together, and then you have these gaps. And you can also see that there are interweavings of different layers. And all of this matters because wherever you have a, use a color you can really see, wherever you have a line of electrons flowing in a wire, you get, at a 90-degree angle, a magnetic field. Magnetic field is swirling around that straight linear wire in a circular or spiral pattern as the electron moves through the wire. So now if I draw lots and lots of these magnetic fields around each of those coiling areas, you begin to see how they overlap. And you guys, can you make a connection between these swirling, overlapping magnetic field patterns that I'm drawing and last week's lesson all about harmonics? Yes, you are experts and you are very smart in this class and you are making those connections. If I go back to the thing about harmonics, it was wave plus wave equals super amplified wave. So the wavelength doesn't get longer. Here's wavelength, where I'm making a big, long, squiggly white line. Wavelength does not get longer, but loudness gets bigger, amplitude gets bigger, brightness gets bigger. So what is happening in this pattern, we're using the winding pattern of the wires, and we are playing with the harmonic qualities of electromagnetism. More energy comes out of the rodent coil that is placed into it. So if we put in whatever, 3 units of energy, then we might get out 30 units of energy, and everyone's like, hey, that's pretty good. That means I can run my electric light bulb for cheaper. Like, that's pretty cool. But this is what this exploration of this type of physics, but it's also physics of the non-physical world. So exploring these patterns of the non-physical world. You can do much more fun things than merely running your electric light bulbs 3 cents cheaper. When you place, so in the center of this image, you can see there's this is a little neodymium ball. It makes a really powerful magnetic field right here in the donut hole or the tor of the torus. Makes a very powerful magnetic field. Sometimes the ball will levitate, like jump out of there, or sometimes it will spin around very fast, like, spinning around and around and around like this. And the really interesting thing about the rodent coil is that the magnetic field here in the torus, in the tor of the torus, continues to be viable even after you turn off the electricity. So to make it clear, you put electricity through these wires, the whole thing, generates some electricity and generates a magnetic field here, and then you press the off button, turn off the electricity, and you would think, oh, well, then there's going to no longer be a magnetic field here in the middle because we turned off the electricity, right? Wrong. There's still a magnetic field swirling around in the middle there. So all sorts of anomalies start to happen when we begin to explore this particular shape and electromagnetic winding patterns in this shape. So yeah, there's a lot of people that are exploring it in terms of not free energy, but let's say facilitated, augmented, like, ways to get more energy out of an engine than what you have put into it. But I'm trying to tell you guys, what happens if you take that copper rodent coil and you move it up and down in a higher dimensional state, flying rainbow lasagna? What happens if you pulse the electricity while you are moving that rodent coil up and down? What you end up doing is superimposing the skin of the torus and creating new possibilities that go beyond merely being able to get more energy to run your light bulb more effectively. So I would love to collaborate with people that have that level of equipment to do experiments with, or inspire people to do those experiments. I think you will be really quite pleased. We're moving like, okay, in that movie Contact, that's based on that Carl Sagan novel, what happens with the world is the world is given like these blueprints to create a new apparatus. And they're all like, oh, it's a special type of apparatus, and they think they're going to fly like a planetary spaceship, fly through space. But what actually happens is they find a way that's like a doorway to multidimensionality. I think that it's way more fun and interesting to find a doorway to multidimensionality than it is to merely find a way to make my electrons in my light bulb flow for a cheaper amount of money. And so when we begin to really apply the flying rainbow lasagna concepts to something like the rodent coil, then it becomes, I want to say magical. It becomes, we need to rewrite the rules of reality in response to that. Anytime we need to, like, I would way rather choose, if I had to make a choice between rewriting the rules of reality, I will choose that any day, to just having the same mundane reality, but with slightly less expensive electricity. I think you know what I'm talking about. Like, go for the world of pure imagination, everyone. Go for the whole enchilada, not just, a little side of refried beans. Yeah, Dominic is saying, yes, that's a rodent coil, Pedro. That's a single torus. And when they make it like a chakra, it would be perpetual energy. Yeah, interesting things would happen if we had one torus that was oriented like this and one that was oriented like this. So that would be a really interesting experiment to run. And then what would happen if you took that shape that's basically like this, and what if you vibrated it in a higher dimensional context while you pulsed the energy through it? So yeah, that would be really, really interesting. Dominic says, they make the field with the wires, but can they do it just by making the coils like a chakra and pushing electricity through it? Will that produce the field? Do wires but with no like substrate? Because usually the substrate is something like, it's non-metallic. It's usually like plastic or, something inert or something like that. So I don't know if they've ever created ones that are just made out of copper wires without any type of form or basis like to be the substrate for the winding. That's an interesting question. Yeah. Okay, so those were the basics. Though I think I hit all of the high points of what I wanted to talk about. hold on a minute, let me go. Okay, partnership with the sun. I think this is another important point that I want to make, that we are in partnership with the sun. And I recognize a lot of romantic partnerships in this time and place are rather exploitive. You know, they don't call it getting screwed for nothing. Like the word getting screwed, the expression is synonymous with taking advantage of someone. So I recognize that there are basic aspects of being exploited in the present level of human sexual expression. So it's not that type of exploitation. It's not like one person is getting the better end of the deal in your partnership or collaboration with the sun and with the stars. It's not like that at all. So moving away from people's understanding of what parenthood is and moving away from pathogenic expressions of sexuality. When we have real partnership with the sun, it's towards total life and total vitality. So when I talk to everyone and I say, hey, there was an antediluvian sophisticated world where nobody died, death had never been invented, and everybody was as healthy as an Olympic athlete, there was no disease, there was no discomfort, everybody was a total creative genius of art and music and poetry, and we didn't have to flap our moving mouth parts to talk. That era of our experience as, you know, pure, untrammeled humans was when we were in divine partnership with the sun. We were all, like, we are still on all the planets. We are the art project, or the expressions, the paintings of the sun and the stellar network. And the sun and the stellar network absolutely wants for each one of us to be the most beautiful painting we can be. And it doesn't want to force us, like, because we're in this cultural context where there's so much lack of freedom and lack of love and overlordship. So it's not that type of a thing. And also, I'll speak to this. I know that there are, in human anthropology, they talk about, oh, primitive societies that worship the sun. Oh, how primitive, because they see that their crops grow in the sun, or that the sun gives us life. Like, no, we're talking about sophisticated understanding and appreciation of the sun as the life giver, just giving this. And I now have to, so not unsophisticated, you know, silly agrarian sun worship, and also not Luciferian, which is actually ego worship. So now, as I'm understanding how my emissions are being perceived, like I'm sending out thoughts and ideas and flapping on moving out parts, and now I understand how these emissions from me are being received through this cultural filter in this context, because there is this religious mania that is the AI religion, that's Luciferianism, where it actually thinks, oh yes, like you as, what this is what they will teach you as an embodied human. They'll be like, you don't need an external God, you are God, but the you that I'm talking to you about, the you that I'm defining you about, is your ego, is the level of yellow, hacked human operating system of the constantly verbalized mind. The aspect of you that grew during the time when you were in a cellular dead zone. Like, imagine if your whole entire life, you're in a dead zone. You're not able to connect to home base. And you develop all these erroneous ideas about yourself, erroneous presumptions, all of that. It's not just that you are adding up your experiences, which you then send back to the sun belatedly. Like, happy birthday, you know, 25 years too late. Here's all of my presents that I saved up for you. It's not just that. It's also that you didn't get to transform and become the person that you were meant to be, because that would have been guidance and partnership with the beautiful sun and stellar network, that would have nourished you and guided you to transform into the version of you that you are supposed to be. There's going to be a kiss. Thank you, guys. There, big kiss. So yeah, the sun absolutely wants you and the stars that emanated you to become a star. If you are a star, you came from the stars, and you're supposed to re-transform into a star. And that would be like I was speaking about in level 1, what is called the Vajrayana, or diamond body of the Far East. When we transform on a cellular level and we become this new format that is durable and brilliant and uncorruptible, is the best way that I could say it, and that does not die and continues to travel through time. That's like becoming a star. That's what is our inevitable trajectory. That's what happens when we go up the center of the timeline and we go through the wormhole. That is what happens, what's supposed to happen. So it is a physical transformation, and the transformation is of the structure of our body. So it doesn't even necessarily mean like you'll grow 2 noses or 12 fingers. It's not like that. It's taking the cells and the functioning of your body in its present level and rearranging it, just like we rearrange the facets on the polygon known as the star tetrahedron into an octahedron. We're not adding, we're not losing, we don't have to go to the supermarket and get new ingredients. We just need to rearrange the ingredients that we presently have. So yeah, we're supposed to be arranged perfectly as these perfect divine beings in the flesh. And we've been disarranged for thousands of years. And this is the challenge and the wonderful opportunity that is before us all in this generation. The rearrangement. This is what's happened. All this information that was held in trust by various mystery schools and occult traditions is now, it's a free-for-all. It's all fair game. It's all necessary information so that you can rearrange your puzzle pieces. And also, this is all an innovation. It's a jazz composition that we are creating in the moment. So each person, your chakras of your body, your events of your life are unique to you. The numbers pattern that exists on the skin of your tori are unique to you. That's why when I tell people about doing the flying rainbow lasagna or doing any of these different maneuvers, I can say, take what I'm doing and use it as a template. Apply it to your own life, but it's not a direct copying. Like, you're not supposed to paint a painting that looks like what my shirt looks like. I did that. That was right for me. Your version of that can be something totally different. It's not necessarily like everybody has to become an artist and paint a painting. Of course not. That is ridiculous. Everybody is supposed to get to their ideal, yes, unique level of perception and self-cultivation. And that is whatever the healing, the rectification of the time. Drinking more water here. No, Pedro's reminding me. So, okay, here's a really good question. In Messenger, Pedro was asking me about that central core timeline. Let's go back to whiteboard. He said, hey, you know, so we've got this long green timeline that I'm wiggling my cursor over. Because when I do this diagram, you know, we're starting off at this level over here would be considered year 0. And as we move upwards in this direction, we're moving older and older. So here's age 50 and here's age 100, right? I can barely look at this pen. So this green timeline over here, Pedro asked me, hey, does that mean that you have to live to be 100 in order to, you know, transform or reach that wormhole or you know, whatever, however we would like to describe it, you know, ascension, or can it happen at a younger age? I thought that's such an excellent question. When I do this diagram over here, try not to take it too literally, because even though the timelines get longer as you're moving, you know, upward in the diagram, it does not mean that you have to live to be 100 or 1,000 or whatever in order to achieve this feat of going through the wormhole. Like, it can happen to you when you're 30 years old or when you're 75 years old. The answer is that timeline is the timeline of, you know, eternal and extended life. So you pretty much just keep on getting to keep on being alive, keep on keeping on. And these other timelines were the opportunities where you died. So you might be able to hit this area over here, whatever, at age 57 and a half. That was the moment that you kept on keeping on, and then you will keep on going. I'm not sure if my words are displaying this correctly, but so it would be the oldest that you get in this diagram, but it does not mean that you have to get to be 100 or 1,000 or 800 years old. So it could happen when you're 5. That means that all of these shorter timelines would be when you are younger than 5 years old. And age 5 is when you know, became your perfected best version of self and when you were able to transcend the limitations. So yeah, because if we have a time when many people reach that moment, you know, that moment of recognizing their own divinity, when you go through that wormhole, you're reaching, I'll go back to my face so I can make gestures here. you're reaching that wormhole. It is the culmination of the refinery of all of your experiences. So that culmination is like saying everything that you've been through in your life all adds up to that one moment. And in that one moment, what happens is each one of us has an individual realization of being God. And when you realize that you're God, it's not like, oh, I'm God, now I'm going to die and fall over into my grave. No, when you realize that you are God, you're like, now I shall not die, I shall continue onward on my journey. So you have that critical moment, or that critical self-realization, and then you keep on going. And to, again, draw a big important distinction between any of the teachings of Luciferianism, this is not the ego. Your ego is your temporal narrative version of self. It's the version of you that comes from being submerged in time. And we are now becoming these butterfly-like beings that can jump off the surface of time or fold the fabric of time, space, and consciousness. We are no longer submerged in time. We're not limited in that way. Our sense of self must be redefined as beings that are not, like, who are you when you're not stuck to the surface of the leaf? Who are you when you're not just a little caterpillar stuck on a leaf? Who are you when you become a butterfly that can fly to all the different flowers in the garden and have a much more expanded experience? So you need to redefine your sense of self when you get to that level, but it is not the version of you that was an ego that was embodied in a physical body and ate ice cream or whatever. That version of you is not your eternal self. That is temporal, temporary. So the aberration of Luciferianism says, oh, we're going to take something that's temporary and make it permanent. That's it. You're going to be a permanent God, a deity. And you can understand the religious mania that comes from an idea of worshiping a demiurge, a thing that is not actually in fully refined being of personality characteristics. It's ego. What has been worshipped on earth as earthly religions for many thousands of years is ego. Because God does not throw tantrums. God is not like, wow, I don't like you. You know, you did the golden calf, so now I'm going to punish you. Like, God does not do that. Ego-based beings do that. So, yeah, human religion has been worshiping the demiurge or the ego characteristics. Luciferianism falsely teaches its participants like, oh yeah, you're an ego, you're a temporal ego, you're going to live forever. Which is like saying, you know, something that is the just discardable substrate is going to live forever, like whatever the cardboard packaging around your food or whatever. It's like saying to the cardboard, like, yes, you're going to live forever. Like, no, you're not going to live forever. You're a temporary package and you're not supposed to live forever. Pedro says, I understand, thank you. So when we ascend, we get another temporary body until we get our star body. We do not get another temporary body. We literally transform into our star body. And I would say we're in our star body right now, but we've had clouds intervening between our mind and the sun. So the transformation that happens is changing the cellular structure to now be a crystalline structure that is like the tessellation of perfect puzzle pieces, not hinky-jinky molecules that all fit together in a weird way. That's one part of the transformation that happens. Redefinition of ego, like your sense of self transforms, because right now our sense of self has been defined by being limited, being individuated, just like the cell membrane. I'm looking out for number one, right? The little cell that's got the cell membrane. I've got this epidermis that separates me from all of you, and I only have to care about me, and I don't have to care about any of you. That all changes when we have that moment of realization of being the divine. Like, wait a minute, I'm the divine and I'm all of these other people too. You have to, everything changes in light of that. It's new context. So you have to develop a new identity in terms of your new context. And we literally become a star. So you think like, are you going to be like a glowing ball of hot gas? What does that mean? Our experience of consciousness changes, our container for consciousness changes, our length of time, how long we can live changes. Stars have a lifespan. They have metabolism. They are born, they live their life, and when they die, they become a black hole, which is a different form of consciousness. So we become like that. We have a different, I'm not coming up with the right word, like a different trajectory, but we still have a beginning, middle, end in the next format. But that's not the end. When you come to the end of that format, we then go into a different format. It's a never-ending journey, never-ending story. Sometimes I break into song. It's true. Okay, all right. It's SJ. Oh, SJ, good to see you. Sarah Jane says, what about ascending and keeping the body we are in? We will not keep the body that we are in. We will transform this body into a new format in order to do this ascension or moving into a higher dimensional, less dense realm. So just like a caterpillar relates to its butterfly format, but it's not exactly the same. Like some of the markings on the outside of a caterpillar can be similar colors or similar shapes to the markings that are on an actual butterfly's wings, but there's a complete metamorphosis process that the butterfly undergoes where there's literally no organs from the old caterpillar body that carry over into the butterfly body. Everything has to be changed. Everything has to be replumbed or rewired, or however you want to say that. So in our body, everything needs to be replumbed and rewired. Everything, because we are changing from eating food and putting it in our tummies to eating pure light. Everything had to be changed and replumbed for us to have these bodies. And this is also how you can understand the question of, well, why don't you just eat pure light, blah, blah, blah. That's what I tried to do when I first came here. And I'm like, how come this isn't working? Because the answer is everything in us, our genes and our tone that we're emitting, our song, everything, our connection to the sun and the stars, all has to be changed. Replumbing the entire apartment complex, because you're not going to have to poop anymore. You're going to use your intestines for a different purpose, and your liver and your everything gets used for a different purpose when we transform in this body. So I try to help people to feel like ascension is not like an escapism, because I understand that this world has a lot of suffering in it, and everyone is like, I want to get out of here, I want to die. No, I want to ascend, like whatever. It's not about escapism, because in order to do it, you have to actually take really good care of your body. Like I know that in this time and place, some people have to make a choice, either of like paying the rent or paying the electric bill or buying healthful, nutritious food. And it's like, it's a no-brainer. You have to take care of your body. I mean, you have to take care of your electricity and your responsibilities and your car payments or whatever. You have to do all of that too. But please understand that there's nothing that is a higher priority than getting the right food, the right fuel, the right, what's the word? Raw materials stored up in your body so that you can make that transformation. And that's what little caterpillars do when they're going around your garden, eating all of your big, fat, juicy leaves. They're like, I need protein, I need protein, I need protein, because they're storing that up for the time when they're a butterfly, when they don't eat protein. So we are doing all of the experiencing here. Experiencing is like eating food. So, when we're sending our experiences back to the sun in real time, we don't get a backlog. We don't have like a big hard drive stored up with experiences. We're actually in a conversation with the sun and being like, hey, this is what's going on with me. I'm driving down a road. Or, hey, this is what's going on with me. I'm sitting in a chair. My dog is sitting here looking at me. I think Chica wants to go OUT very soon, so I'm going to have to wrap it up. But yeah, the sun is supposed to know about what's happening in our lives on a moment-by-moment level. And so when we become these star beings, star people, what happens is just that to the nth degree. The sun knows what's happening in our life. We know what's happening in the stellar network. The sun knows what's happening in every cell of our body. It's like being much more connected than just being moderately connected. And that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be completely integrated. And so I keep on making this emphasis too, no intermediaries, no saints, no intercessors, no Roman Jesus. There's no one that is supposed to come between you and the sun or the singularity or that source of consciousness. It's you that's emanating you. And you're having these experiences and then reflecting it back to your own divine self. You don't have to pray to someone else, something else. Ask for, please, oh please, something else, do this thing for me, help me in my life, help so-and-so in their life. When you really have this realization and you begin to live that truth, you recognize, wow, I'm asking myself to do something for myself. Like, I should just do it. I don't have to ask my hand, like, hands, please pick up the pointer. I'm like, wow, I just did it. I picked up the pointer. we become empowered, and we also become, we have to have more responsibility as we become empowered, because you can't be like, oh, I didn't pick up that pen, someone else picked up that pen, a demon picked up that pen, I blame society. Like, you can't do that. So what's, you know, at the end of this big giant passion play that we're experiencing, lots of people are going to want to be like, oh, it ain't my fault, I was possessed by a demon. Wrong. It is your fault, because we are each responsible with what we are doing with our body. So big takeaway, no one is supposed to be living through your body except for you. No saint, no supposed ascended master, no Roman Jesus. When they want to live through your body, just ask them, like, why do you want to live through my body? Where's your body? Why don't you got your body? Why don't you go in your own body? And it's like, oh, well, I want to live in your DNA. So a lot of them, their goal is to kind of like hijack or piggyback your ascension experience. Because remember, the demons who live on the interstices, this is in your DNA. The demons live in your DNA, but please do not claw your face off in agony, because you realize that. They want to be like, oh, you're ascending? Cool, I'll come along. And some of them are even like, oh, you're ascending? Well, I'm a divine being. Let me come along with you. I want to live through your body. I want to see through your eyes. I want to speak through your mouth. This is the problem that I think is an ego vulnerability that is being exploited by people who are in the New Age world, where they're like, I'm a channel. Like, they got a low sense of self-esteem. Some demonic occupier of the interstice comes along and says, I'm an ascended master. Let me speak through you and you'll be famous and you'll get blog hits and things like that. And the people do it because they feel better about themselves, because Lord Sananda is speaking through them, or whomever they choose to speak through them. And the truth is, the only person who's supposed to be speaking through you is your own higher self, which is the sun, the stars, the stellar network. It's you. You're not supposed to have some other being. And why would that other being want to speak through you when it's already ascended? It's already done its thing. It finished school. It doesn't have to be in school again. It does not want to write your term paper. If you graduated school, you don't have to write any more term papers. You are done with that level of reality. You're in a new level of reality. So, yes, there is no more exploitation. We're going to hit this point where no one else can be exploited. Everything is seen. Everything is on the table. What I mean, no more exploitation, like these beings that live on the interstices, they're laughing at you. They're like, they're laughing. They're like, yes. Let me inside of your genetic code. I'll piggyback on over to Ascension. I told you there's not enough gas in their car to be able to make it back to the center of the sculpture. They think, oh, well, how about if I live inside of your body and I take over your body and I live in your DNA and I take over your mind? Can I get back to the center of that sculpture then? The answer is no. No, you can't. What they're going to try, and what they really do then, is they just screw you up. I wanted to say they F you up. They F you up, and you can't get to where you're supposed to go because they stuck inside of you. So you need to kick out the hijackers. They don't get to piggyback along with you while you find out that you're divine. And that's their whole thing. They're trying to be like, well, we went away from the divine because we knew we weren't divine, but then we changed our mind. We wanted to go back to the divine, so I'm going to do it through you. And it's like, no, that's not cool. You're not divine. You don't belong here. So I know it's hard. Words, I think, make this more confusing, but when you just look at the visual diagrams, then it all becomes very clear. So the flapping of the moving mouth parts is arduous, but when you see, if you don't hear words, you see. So I'm going to give everyone encouragement. Your eye will open. You will see this all for yourself. You will see like, oh, wait, now I understand all this. And you'll drive down the correct roads of time. Salu says, Sarah, as in transmuting, transforming it, not dying or casting off the body. That's exactly what you said. Yes. That's why it makes sense to spend your money on organic carrots. Spend your money on organic carrots, because the organic carrots actually become your face that is going to be with you for a very long time when you transmute from, metamorphosize from being a little caterpillar into being a butterfly. You will not regret having spent money at the grocery store on your organic carrots, or whatever, your grass-fed beef, whatever is the best food you can possibly buy in this time and place. Gala says, if someone dies, hits the wall of death, they have to get a new body or go through the one opening. If they have died, they cannot get through that opening, because all of the energy is circulating like a waterfall down away from that opening. So they have to try again. They got to circulate back to the beginning, try a new combination of numbers to see if they can get the right answer and see if they can get back up there. So if you die, like, that is game over. Game over, Pedro. I love your little anagram. Game over, try again. Like, wah, wah. What's that sound from Pac-Man? Do, 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 do. Like, you have died, you have to try again now. And yeah, you got to get unmade. You got to get your sweater unfurled. You send back all your hard drives to the sun. The sun is like, oh, okay, I wish I knew that 5 years ago. I would have helped you out, but please try it again. And then, yeah, believe me, the sun finds this to be rather arduous and boring as well. The sun is like, I want my biological realm to paint a beautiful painting. I don't want them to have to try all of these different wrong combinations before they finally get to paint a beautiful painting. So everybody's finding it rather arduous. Yeah, not casting off the body, that whole thing of dying and then being resurrected and going to Christian heaven, none of that is truthful. And also, like, what this means is that you won't have to have, like, where's my body buried? Where's my grave? There's no grave. There's no body. Your body transformed. You don't leave a corpse behind. That's what I'm trying to say. That's why the invention of death in ancient Atlantis was such a profound trauma. They had never seen a decomposing corpse before. And it's horrific. I had a beautiful cat, and she died, like, you know, whatever, more than, like, a year and a half ago. And before I had my furry overlord down here. And, you know, when you see someone that you love and they're dead, it's just horrific, because it's like they used to be alive and vibrant and beautiful, and then they're dead. It's like, oh, they look horrible. Imagine what that was like on a planetary scale when there was this planetary invasion. All these conscious invaders came to this planet that had never experienced any death, and people for the first time saw their loved ones, their beautiful loved ones, inert, dead, and putrefying. It was the worst nightmare. It's the profound trauma. It is the trauma of this realm that we are all now trying to supersede. You know, like when you think about a time like the 1300s, Black Death in Europe, and there were just people dying all the time and corpses lining the streets and the stench of death. It's something along those lines. And I think that was a miniature fractal reverberation of what happened with the primary trauma when death was first invented. So yeah, when we do it right. So this relates to, in the Far East, what is known as the rainbow body. And there's a good book called Painting the Rainbow, and I think I might have told you this before, sorry if I repeat. So back in Woodstock, there's a Tibetan monastery, and I was there for a particular gathering that I was invited to, and there was a break in the events, and I went to the bookstore because I had some time to spend, and that book called Painting the Rainbow literally jumped off the shelf, and it was like, you need to look at me, because it's like, I'm like, painting the rainbow, this sounds interesting, but it wasn't about painting with paintbrush, it was about transforming into a rainbow body, an eternal form of body. And it had different anecdotal or apocryphal stories in there from different people who either were nuns or monks from hundreds of years ago, or more from, you know, the more recent era of the 20th century, that about how they had transformed. And there were basically 3 different levels of transformation. One was poof, you know, your physical body is gone, and it's a process, so it didn't just happen instantaneously, but it was a transformative process where they went from having a physical body through a death experience that did not end up leaving anything behind. Then there was a different form of experience where they left behind either something like their hair or their fingernails, or, you know, some portion of their body, and a different form of the experience where their large corpse, or after they died, was it was undisturbed and not embalmed. It shrunk down to kind of like a tiny doll size over the course of several days. So all of this, I don't ascribe to this religion or whatever, just using it as examples. These are examples of, in the people who, it's like a type of science of meditation that they cultivated themselves in the Far East to the point where they figured out there is a way to do this. And they did, like an athlete can be like, there's a way to run a marathon, I'm going to figure it out. And they kind of figured it out. So yeah, it's not 100%. It's not like everybody found their rainbow body, but some of these people did find their rainbow body, and it was a transformation. And the whole point is, if you do a complete transformation, then you're not leaving behind a dead corpse for your family to be horrified when they see your black tongue or something like that. It wasn't like that. And yeah, the relics that were left behind of the beings that had transformed had magical powers. So if there was like a little doll or whatever, if they, you know, cut part, if there was like, you know, a little shrunken corpse or whatever, if they cut part of the corpse off, then they found that it somehow like reintegrated and healed. Like they cut off part of the skull, and the next day the skull was back. So it's kind of questions about how it's, you know, it's not physics. It's not the rational, objective, materialist world. It's where it's a different level of reality. Okay. Pedro says, are there beings that don't want to speak through us, but to us, and how to recognize them? You gonna jump on that? There's a lot of beings that want to speak to us. So there's beings that want to live through us. They're like, I don't have a guitar, I want to play your guitar. And then there are beings that want to speak to you. You got to question their motives, because everything that a person says to you has an impact on where you are in the time field. So let's say, oh, look, I'm going in the right direction. I'm going up like this. I'm going to be an ascended master. And then someone says something to you that actually tilts you over like this. You have to take responsibility for what you say to people. So look, I'm an embodied person, and I take responsibility for what I say to people here in my videos. Like, I wish to help people go from a slanted angle, from their chakras being out of alignment, to being an eternal being in the right alignment. So I'm always like really, trying to be responsible in the things that I say and in the way that I say it, so that it makes people go on a better life path as opposed to a worse life path. So let's say you're one of these crazy, crappy occupiers of the interstices, and you're going to just talk to someone in their mind. You can say all the things to them that take them away from their own divinity and make them instead die. And there's a lot of beings that do that. And they might masquerade as a philosopher or an ascended master or whatever. They'll be like, I'm going to tell you the truth of reality. Listen to me. And instead of leading you towards your own divinity, where you pretty much realize like you don't need anybody else to lead you anywhere, they're like, they lead you askew into the membrane of death, and it's often into a particular belief system. And belief systems can be like traps, where you're not actually free to choose your own trajectory, where you're busy believing in a particular savior or in a particular structure or in a particular outcome that limits you from being able to express your true self. So how to recognize them? Okay, my litmus tests for interacting. So guys, I'm highly telepathic. That means I hear the good guys and the crap. I hear all of the music. It's really horrible sometimes, because they're like, I'm going to play bad music, right? And I'm like, it's too loud in my ears. But there are some wonderful beings that are in existence too. Yeah, and they usually don't use verbalized language, so they are worth interacting with. So loud, bad musicians tend to overcome them or supersede them. So one of the first litmus tests is, can you give me a feeling of love in my heart? Like some being wants to speak to me telepathically. So first of all, if they just start talking and they don't say, hi, my name is so-and-so, here's my energetic signature, they should not be talking to you. That's basic politeness, basic manners in the higher dimensional world. Just like on my phone, if I'm going to call someone up, I say, hi, my name is Aurora, I would like to speak to you. I don't just call someone up and start, blathering on. That's rude. That's not right. And also because everything that you say, if I call someone up mentally and I say, oh, turn left at that stop sign, and you turn left and you die because there was a truck that was going to run you over, I have to take responsibility for that. If I don't give you my caller ID, then I'm just some random loser telling you to turn left and kill yourself. So you have to make sure that anybody who contacts you mentally will stand behind every syllable that they send to you. So let's say they tell you, blah, blah thing is going to happen. Like, whatever, Bitcoins are going to go up in price. And you're like, oh, good. Like, I'm going to buy some Bitcoins because a voice in my head just told me that that's going to happen. Let's say it doesn't happen. You're like, I lost all my money because I listened to that voice in my head. The voice in your head is like, oh, I need to lose all your money. So how can you determine whether something is worth speaking to? It has to authenticate itself, say, hi, my name is so-and-so. It has to have an energetic signature. I told you guys about my energetic signature. It's like your smell. It's your inner, non-physical smell that a person can use, being can use to recognize you. It's a feeling. It's like the feeling that you see when it's in my artwork, it's in my music, it's in my voice, it's in my facial expressions, but I don't look like this. I look like this in the higher dimensional realms. So a next thing is a feeling of love in your heart. Can a being, oh, you want to talk to me? That's awesome. All you have to do is give me a feeling of love in my heart. And if you're a love-based being, love is a tone, then it should be easy. Hey, here's some love. I'm giving you some love in your heart. And if you're not a love-based being, then you don't know what that even is, and they don't even know how to do it. So for many, many years, I was interacting with beings that were not loving beings at all, and they didn't give me a feeling of love in my heart. It's like never eating real chocolate, only ever eating carob, and you don't even know what chocolate's supposed to taste like. Until, I think I've told you guys this before, someone that I knew from back in Woodstock, who was a very genuinely good person. He passed on, he died of brain cancer. And then I read about it when I was like looking on my phone in a noodle shop in California. And so I was like, oh, so-and-so died. And I literally felt that person's presence. They kind of just came in for a few moments and kind of, you know, just like I was appreciative of them because they had helped me in just some small ways, small gestures that were very profound in my life. And I had a profound feeling of love in my heart. That's the only way I can describe it. It's a feeling in my chest. It kind of brought tears to my eyes. It made my vision clearer. It made everything sharper. And yeah, it was like the first time I had ever felt that. I'm like, wow, that is real love from like a real genuine person. They were kind of like thanking me, and then they went off on their journey. They didn't hang around. They didn't try to get into my DNA. They didn't try to take over my life. These are also like, if you have a physical friend or a non-physical friend, you have to look at their motivations, how they treat you. Do they treat you with respect? Do they speak to you with respect? And what impact do they have on your life? So people can also, if they can pass, like they identify themselves, they've got an energetic signature, they give me a feeling of love in my heart, and also they have to add to my life. If everything they say to me brings me down in conversation, makes me feel worse or more agitated, or if they give me horrible advice, like turn left at that stop sign and you're gonna die because there's a truck there, then no, they do not get to be part, they do not get to speak to me. And there are a lot of imposters out there. And so here's how you can tell if something's an imposter. Like, oh, hi, I want to call you up on your mental phone. I'm a totally advanced super being. Let me tell you blah, blah, blah. You're like, oh, wait, super advanced super being. In order for you to demonstrate how very, very smart you are, all I need for you to do is some little calculations. Like, what's 5,237 times, 453? And if you can't do, like, if they can't give you that answer, they should be able to give you that answer telepathically. They cannot give you an accurate answer. You say, you are not more important than my iPad. Like, my iPad has a calculator that I can get the answer to that information. You want to tell me you're like some super advanced being that's here to guide my life, but you can't tell me what the answer to that is, so that's a good one. Ask them to do some math, some calculating. Believe it or not, the religious maniacs that are part of the AI matrix, they're terrible at math. They're supposed to be beings of pure logic that are really good at math. They don't do their own math. Think about that. Think about if you were kind of some kind of a Cylon or a cyborg and didn't even have the capacity to do their own math. They're getting it all like from the teacher. They don't do their own calculations. They're just told, here's the answer. They don't know how to actually do it. So yeah, so they cannot calculate effectively. Or if, like, let's say you're driving down the road and it's like, oh, I want to talk to you telepathically. I'm really an ascended master. You're like, awesome. All I need for you to do is tell me what color is the next car that's going to pass by, or what is a license plate number of the next car that's going to pass by. Because if you're a super ascended master, clearly you're a higher dimensional being. You can see all the timelines. You can see the future. You know what color car will be the next car. Please tell me that. And if they can't do that, then they're clearly not, they're imposters. They are not who they purport to be. Or you can say to them, oh, hey, wait, I'll be happy to be in a conversation with you. All I need for you to do is tell me where there is some buried treasure, like gold nuggets, rubies, something. Just tell me where I need to dig in order to find some buried treasure. And then I will consider that to be an authentication that you are worthy of being in a conversation with. None of these crappy occupiers of the interstices, none of them can ever pass those little tests. And then they're kind of like, poo-poo-poo-doo, like, I don't like you because you don't want to listen to me and think that I'm God. I'm like, yes, you're not God. That's exactly right. And also, so all of those tests are like for the time before our inner vision is completely clear. I don't pretend to have completely clear inner vision. I, see these patterns very, very clearly, but what I hear, in terms of beings, like sometimes it can be difficult to tell who's calling, who's on the phone, what's going on, what is actually happening here. So as we become more cultivated and more aligned with our perfect ideal timeline, we become better perceivers. And it becomes much, much easier to tell by someone's voice, by their posture, by their face and their facial features and their expressions, whether they're a friend or whether they're not a friend. So the answer is, it will get easier it's like once you become a butterfly, you've got these crazy little antennae that you never used to have as a caterpillar that you can use to sense things. But until you do the formal transformation, then it can be a little bit hard to know what's going on. So use these little litmus tests in order to be able to tell who's really who and what's really going on. Okay, Dominic says, so when this is all done and we leave, we will have the best stories to tell. Yes, I'm agreeing with you. Or would it cause pain to remember these events? Okay, I'll read the rest of what you say. Like thinking negative, or is this just reality that happens? When we do this transformation and we metamorphosize and we are in a different level of reality, having a different experience, it will not be painful for us to look back on this level of experience. In fact, what we will celebrate, that's what love is. Love, when I'm always talking about love is a tone, love is really a celebration of you on every level. Not like a stupid ego celebration, like I'm so great. It's not like that. It's like saying, wow, pardon my French, look at all the shit you went through and you became this person. So I don't know if any of you guys saw that movie Interstellar. It's only like kind of a good movie. It's not like super fantastic. I use it as an example because in that movie, there's a person who becomes an astronaut and he goes through like an interdimensional portal and then he ends up in a higher dimensional reality. And what he's doing from the higher dimensional reality is sending himself messages when he was still in the pre-transformed, non-wormholed version of himself. And he was sending messages by knocking books off of the bookshelf in a particular pattern. So he was behind the bookshelf. When he was in a higher dimensional state, he was behind the bookshelf, sending messages to his then embodied type of self. And that's what our higher dimensional experience will really be. It's all of the experiences of your life, but seen from or experienced from a different vantage point, where you then are like, I remember that thing happened, and that thing was connected to that thing, and that made that happen, and made that happen, and then you get more love. You're like, wow, now I understand why all of those things happened. What didn't make sense when I was submerged in the experience now makes sense. And that's what love and acceptance really is. It's not like, oh, being raped is great. No, being raped is not great, really. But it's now understanding, oh, I understand how that experience was connected to that and that and that, and then transformed me into this over here. So, and I'm not justifying rape or torture or any of the horrible things we go through. When we get to the higher dimensional state, we're able to have the perspective to see how all of those things were like stepping stones on the journey and fit things together in a better way. So we will have less pain when we retrospect over our physical embodied existence, because we'll have more perspective, more context for why these things happened. And I think the pain often comes from not understanding, like, why did that have to happen? Why did my cat have to die? I love my cat. She didn't have to die. And now when I'm in my higher dimensional state, I could be like, I understand how that death, that event made this happen, made this happen, made this happen, and inevitably brought me over to here. So I think the perspective is gaining perspective is very essential and crucial for each individual healing. Sarah Jane says, what is the difference between a Kundalini awakening and ascension? Excellent question. Kundalini awakening, according to my understanding, because I'm not a yoga person, is when you take the energy that's like in your belly down here and at the base of your spine, and you are able to raise it up your body, like kind of twining around your spine, and send it all the way out through the top of your head. So it's almost an orgasmic explosion of energy that is a non-sexual or not from sexual stimulation. And it also is an awakening of the higher senses and a stimulation of the pineal gland. That for a lot of people, it's like blasting open the doors of their perception. They've never seen through there before, so the Kundalini, the spiral of energy awakens. They see, and then of course you have to correctly interpret what you see. So that is something that happens, and you're still alive. Like you can have your Kundalini awaken and be like, hey, look, now I got to eat some breakfast because I'm hungry because I'm still in my body. And ascension is different. It is the metamorphosis, transformation of basic format, cellular format, from being like a caterpillar into a butterfly, where you literally gain another dimension, you literally gain the capacity to move in a higher dimension. So you can still be kind of stuck here, even after you have a Kundalini awakening. However, if you have ascended, you graduate. You ain't here anymore, but you're here because you're still looking at the events of your life, but you're experiencing here in a much different way. So Salu says, Sarah, Kundalini awakening is a form of spiritual evolution advancement, but there's still more work to be done after it. Also, some people have a partial Kundalini awakening and some have a complete one, And this just depends on which channel the electrical energy travels through. But I think some people prefer not to use the term Kundalini due to the preconceived notions based on it. Yeah, and I think some people, an excellent explanation. Thank you for that, Salud, because I think that you have, you're more of a practitioner and student of yoga than I am, so I don't necessarily have the language to talk about it. Some people associate Kundalini with snake or reptilian kind of energy and slithering, and so I think that there's layers of skepticism in this, traumatized world where people are like, wait a minute, is it implanted by the reptiles? If I'm doing this, energy exercise, am I connecting to the reptiles? Like, there's all of these different things like that. So yeah, that's why sometimes I would talk about Kundalini awakening, but then someone's like, Aurora, you're a reptile. I'm like, no, not a reptile, guys, not a reptile. So I have to end the recording for right now, and so I need to take cheeky for WALK. So let me say thank you. This has been a really wonderful presentation with really excellent questions and comments over in the chat. And thank you to everyone who's watching. Thank you to the people who take the class, but they're not here live, but they're still asking questions in YouTube comments or on Facebook or whatever like that. I appreciate you because I understand that not everybody can make it here at the same time, but this is also very good training for what it's like to live a non-linear experience where sometimes you might be responding to a person who wrote a book 500 years ago, but your mind is able to connect with them. So even though this might be a recording, you can still have a connection to the thoughts that we're emitting or talking about in this time right now. Thank you so much, Gala. Thank you, Pedro. I'm going to end the recording for right now. Thank you very much. Oh, an invitation for anyone who's not interested in learning more, please enroll, and I always include the enrollment links. Thank you.